Hello, brothers, and welcome to Sigma Old Man Channel. Time doesn't just age a Sigma male, it forges him. Most men fear their 30s and 40s as if youth slipping away means power fading. But studies show the average man doesn't even hit his mental and financial stride until well into his mid-30s. For the Sigma male, this isn't just a stride, it's his takeoff. In his 20s, he was sharpening his blade in silence while everyone else was swinging theirs wildly. By the time he hits 30 and 40, he doesn't just walk into his prime, he detonates it. This is the era where he stops being underestimated, stops being overlooked, and starts being impossible to ignore. His silence isn't awkward anymore, it's magnetic. His solitude isn't a weakness anymore, it's a workshop where his mastery is built. And the funniest part, while most people are panicking about getting older, the Sigma male is just now getting warmed up. This isn't midlife, for him it's prime time. Number one. He turns time into his ally, not his enemy. He turns time into his ally, not his enemy. That's what separates a Sigma male from most men once he reaches his 30s and 40s. Where others look at the mirror and see years slipping away, he sees refinement. Time doesn't scare him because he never built his worth on fleeting things like youthful charm or cheap approval. Instead, he built his life like a slow fire, steady, contained, and relentless. Every year adds to him, never subtracts. Most men hit their 30s and start clinging to the past, talking about the good old days, as if their best moments are already behind them. The Sigma doesn't play that game. He knows the best days are the ones where he has the sharpest mind, the calmest patience, and the hardest calluses earned from surviving what should have broken him. His scars don't make him weaker, they polish his edges. Time becomes the sculptor, carving away what he doesn't need, leaving behind only the essential, the pure, the dangerous. At 20, he was still raw. At 30 and 40, he's precise. He no longer wastes energy chasing after validation, opportunities, or people that drain him. He has learned that not every fight is worth swinging at, not every battlefield deserves his presence, and not every person is worthy of his time. That lesson only comes with years, and now he uses it like a blade. Time has turned him into a strategist instead of just a survivor. And here's the irony. While others are terrified of aging, he almost welcomes it. The years give him more leverage, more mastery, more detachment from trivial distractions. He's not obsessed with staying young forever because he knows power doesn't come from smooth skin or boyish energy. It comes from depth, control, and wisdom that can't be faked. Every candle added to his birthday cake is another notch of power he carries silently. He doesn't fight time, he harnesses it. Where others see decline, he sees compounding interest. Time sharpens him, tempers him, and makes him more dangerous than he has ever been. For a Sigma male, aging isn't loss, it's evolution. And in his 30s and 40s, he isn't just older, he's weaponized. Number two, his aura has gravity, not just energy. When a Sigma male reaches his 30s and 40s, his aura stops being just raw energy. It becomes gravity. Younger men often burst into a room buzzing with excitement, full of noise and movement, but that energy burns fast and leaves nothing behind. The Sigma doesn't need to shout, move constantly, or light himself up like fireworks. He's past the stage of trying to be noticed. By this point, his very presence carries weight. People feel him before they even realize they're looking at him. It's not about charisma in the conventional sense. He doesn't force attention with loud jokes or exaggerated confidence. What draws people in is the sense that he doesn't need to be there at all. He could walk away at any second. And that detachment creates a magnetic pull. Others sense that he belongs to no one, answers to no one, and doesn't need validation from anyone. That kind of independence is rare, and people orbit around it without even understanding why. The gravity of his presence comes from lived experience. By his 30s and 40s, he's survived disappointments, betrayals, victories and losses, and all of that sits quietly in his demeanor. His silence is no longer awkward, it's charged. His stillness doesn't feel passive, it feels powerful, like he's choosing not to waste movement. This makes people lean in, lower their voices, and unconsciously shift their energy to his rhythm. He doesn't enter a room trying to match the noise. He slows the entire frequency down to his pace. What makes it even stronger is that he isn't trying to create this effect. He isn't practicing some social trick or reading from a self-help script. His gravity is simply the natural outcome of a man who has cut off the need to prove himself. And ironically, that lack of effort makes him unforgettable. Others generate sparks that flash and disappear. He doesn't spark, he pulls. He pulls attention, curiosity, respect, even fear, all without lifting a finger. That's the difference between energy and gravity. Energy fades, but gravity remains. At 30 and 40, the Sigma male becomes the kind of man who doesn't chase the world. The world bends toward him. Would you like me to expand this point into a long-form 400-plus word deep dive like I did for the last one, so it hits with even more weight and detail? Number 3, he's no longer distracted by proving himself. At 20, the Sigma male is still sharpening his weapons. He's experimenting, testing, and sometimes overextending himself just to prove he's capable. That's the stage where every win feels like validation, and every challenge feels like something he has to conquer to show he belongs. But by the time he reaches his 30s and 40s, that restless energy shifts. He no longer swings wildly just to be seen as dangerous. He already knows what he's capable of, and that self-certainty changes everything. This is the point where he stops caring about applause, competition, or comparisons. He isn't chasing trophies anymore, he's calculating outcomes. The young man wants everyone to notice the sharpness of his blade, but the Sigma in his prime knows that a weapon doesn't need to be shown off to be effective. Control becomes his edge. He can walk into a situation, size it up in silence, and strike only if it's worth his time. That restraint is terrifying because it shows he isn't reactive, he's deliberate. When a man no longer has to prove himself, his moves become clean, efficient, and unpredictable. People can sense it. They notice how he doesn't over-explain, doesn't argue unnecessarily, and doesn't scramble to be validated. That absence of need communicates power louder than any loud performance ever could. His confidence isn't in what he says, but in what he doesn't bother saying. His strength isn't in how often he fights, but in how rarely he needs to. And here's the irony. The moment he stops trying to prove himself, the world begins proving it for him. His track record, his composure, and his aura speak louder than any claim he could make. Younger men exhaust themselves trying to be acknowledged. The Sigma male in his prime has mastered the art of letting others acknowledge him without effort. This control makes him lethal in a way that raw aggression never could. A man who fights to prove himself can be baited, manipulated, and worn out. But a man who already knows who he is cannot be moved by taunts, distractions, or shallow rewards. He doesn't need to win every battle because he's already won the only one that mattered, mastering himself. And that's when he becomes unstoppable. Would you like me to also refine this into a 380, 400-word extended version, like the Time as an Ally one, so you can keep consistency and depth across all points? Number 4, he's seen the cost of every mask. By the time a Sigma male reaches his 30s and 40s, he's worn enough masks to know exactly how much each one costs. In his younger years, he may have tried on society's costumes, being the reliable employee, the fun guy, the perfect boyfriend, or the ambitious ladder climber. Each mask came with rules, expectations, and hidden debts. At the time, he might have thought they were necessary to survive or fit in. But over the years, he's discovered the truth. Every mask suffocates. Every role that isn't authentically his drains life from him and ties him to obligations that feel like shackles. By this stage, he's done paying those hidden costs. He no longer bends his personality just to keep a crowd comfortable. He no longer says yes to jobs, relationships, or lifestyles that cage him. Stripping off those masks doesn't just make him free. It makes him unsettling to those who are still trapped behind their own disguises. When they see him living without a script, it exposes their own dependence on roles, and that confrontation makes them uneasy. What makes this evolution powerful is that it's irreversible. Once a Sigma male has seen how much authenticity costs versus how much fakery costs, he refuses to go backward. It's not rebellion for its own sake, it's survival. He understands that pretending is more exhausting than solitude, more expensive than failure, and more destructive than rejection. So he would rather face the discomfort of being misunderstood than the slow death of being fake. And here's the brutal truth. When a man sheds all his masks, he becomes harder to control. Social systems are designed to keep people in costumes: obedient worker, charming entertainer, dutiful partner, because masks are predictable. A man without them is unpredictable, untouchable, and, to many, terrifying. He doesn't give the usual signals that manipulators rely on, and he doesn't play the expected roles that make others feel secure. He operates raw, and raw power unsettles people who've spent their whole lives acting. At 30 and 40, the Sigma male isn't interested in performing anymore. He's interested in breathing freely, and once he takes off the last mask, he realizes he doesn't just live lighter, he lives untamed. And that's what makes him dangerous. Number 5, he has a Rolodex of invisible weapons. By the time a Sigma male reaches his 30s and 40s, his arsenal isn't just talent anymore, it's an entire Rolodex of invisible weapons. At 20, he had raw skill, quick reflexes, and a drive to prove himself, but raw talent alone is obvious and easy to predict. Now, years later, what he carries isn't on display. It's hidden in scars, refined in lessons, and sharpened by the kinds of failures most men would rather bury than learn from. Every setback became a blueprint. Every betrayal became a warning system. Every mistake became a tool he now keeps tucked away, ready to use without anyone seeing it coming. The difference between the younger Sigma and the one in his prime is subtle but dangerous. The younger version might have shown you his hand, eager for recognition. The older version lets you assume he's unarmed while carrying weapons you'll never see until it's too late. Strategies, contacts, skills, and instincts, none of it is flaunted, all of it is stored. His quiet demeanor becomes camouflage for just how many cards he's holding. Those silent alliances he's built over the years are another layer of hidden firepower. People he's helped without fanfare, connections he's nurtured quietly, and networks he doesn't advertise. All of them can be activated at the right moment. He doesn't need a crowd around him, but when he does need support, he can summon it without anyone realizing how deep his reach goes. That unpredictability is his strength. You never know if you're facing just him or the invisible system of allies and insights he's been gathering like a patient hunter. What makes him so dangerous is the fact that he no longer feels the urge to broadcast his power. Younger men want you to know they're strong. A Sigma in his 30s and 40s prefers that you underestimate him. He knows that invisibility is its own weapon. People who think he's detached or quiet often mistake it for weakness, until he pulls out solutions, moves, or decisions they never saw coming. At this stage, he doesn't just have weapons, he is a weapon. But unlike the wild energy of his youth, this version is hidden, silent, and precise. And that makes him infinitely harder to anticipate and nearly impossible to defeat. Number 6, he understands power without needing position. By the time a Sigma male hits his 30s and 40s, he's stopped begging for titles. In his 20s, he might have been tempted by the shiny labels, manager, director, partner, leader, because those positions looked like the gateways to respect. But after years of observing how hierarchies really work, he understands something most men never figure out. Titles are decorations, not weapons. Real power isn't in the label on your door or the rank in your bio. Real power is leverage, what you can walk away from, what you can influence without being seen, and how little you actually need others to approve of you. This shift makes him untouchable inside any system. A man who depends on position can be destroyed by losing it, but a man whose power comes from leverage, his knowledge, his network, his self-sufficiency, remains dangerous no matter where you place him. Take away his title and he doesn't crumble, he adapts. Strip him of recognition and he doesn't chase it. He uses invisibility to his advantage. That's why hierarchies have such a hard time pinning him down. He's not chained to them. He also knows that most people use titles as a mask for weakness. They lean on the authority of their role because without it, they're nothing. The Sigma sees through that instantly. He measures a man not by his title, but by what happens when the title is stripped away. And because he no longer seeks labels for himself, he doesn't waste time envying those who have them. Instead, he studies the flow of influence, watching who actually makes decisions, who actually controls outcomes, and who simply wears a costume of authority. That realization changes how he moves. He no longer plays office politics. He no longer cares about being the loudest in the room. He sits back, calculates, and uses leverage in ways titles can't compete with. Maybe it's the freedom to walk away. Maybe it's the ability to get things done without needing permission. Maybe it's the kind of respect that comes from competence, not a badge. By his prime, he's learned that positions can be given and taken, but leverage is earned and permanent. And that's why he's so dangerous. He isn't controlled by a system that most men are still trying to climb. He stands outside it, untouchable. Number 7. He knows the difference between isolation and solitude. When a Sigma male is younger, isolation can feel like exile. In his 20s, stepping away from the noise often carried a sting of loneliness. It felt like the cost of not fitting in. But by the time he reaches his 30s and 40s, he learns the critical difference between isolation and solitude. Isolation drains, solitude builds. That understanding transforms everything, because what once felt like absence now becomes presence, his own. In solitude, he's no longer waiting for company or validation. He's not scrolling endlessly, wishing someone would fill the silence. Instead, he starts to see silence as space, room to grow, room to plan, room to sharpen. Where other men drown in quiet, he thrives in it. It becomes a forge, a place where distractions burn away and only clarity remains. Out of that clarity, he builds new skills, new strategies, new ways of moving through the world that others won't see until years later. This shift is powerful because most people spend their entire lives running from solitude. They surround themselves with noise, entertainment, and empty conversations to avoid facing themselves. The Sigma male does the opposite. He walks straight into solitude and learns to use it as fuel. By 30 and 40, that habit has compounded. He's not just comfortable alone, he's productive alone. His ideas mature in silence, his discipline strengthens in it, his resilience hardens inside it. And while everyone else associates being alone with weakness, he realizes it's the exact opposite. A man who needs constant company is dependent. A man who thrives in solitude is free. He doesn't wither when the crowd leaves, he expands. He doesn't collapse when nobody's watching, he evolves. That's what makes him so different from men who still confuse loneliness with emptiness. By his prime, his solitude has shaped him into something stronger than independence. It has given him creation power. He doesn't just survive the quiet, he uses it to construct things people in noisy circles could never even dream of. Empires, whether of business mindset or influence, aren't built in chaos. They're built in silence. And that's why in his 30s and 40s, the Sigma male doesn't just tolerate solitude, he wields it. Number 8, he's seen enough manipulation to be unmanipulable. By the time a Sigma male reaches his 30s and 40s, he's been around long enough to see manipulation in every form. He's seen it in friendships where loyalty was conditional, in workplaces where flattery disguised exploitation, and in relationships where affection came with invisible strings. Every trick, every guilt trip, every emotional hook, he's seen it all. And the beauty of experience is that once you've been burned enough times, you stop walking blindly into the fire. What makes him different at this stage is his ability to recognize patterns instantly. Manipulators rely on repetition. They recycle the same tactics: love bombing, guilt tripping, passive-aggressive remarks, fake urgency, because most people are too naive or too eager to be liked to notice. But the Sigma male notices. He has a mental archive of every move he's ever witnessed, and that archive makes him almost impossible to deceive. He can hear the tone, see the shift in body language, or read the unspoken pressure, and he knows exactly what game is being played. The power is not just in his recognition, but in his reaction, or rather, his lack of it. Manipulators thrive on predictability. They expect guilt will make you apologize, flattery will make you bend, and pressure will make you cave. But the Sigma gives them nothing. No overreaction, no scrambling to fix things, no desperate attempt to win back favor. He meets manipulation with calm indifference, and that silence is more devastating than confrontation. It tells the manipulator, "You have no power here." This is why, by his prime, he unnerves people who are used to pulling strings. They can't find a handle on him. He doesn't bite when baited, doesn't fold under pressure, and doesn't light up when dangled with false rewards. He's steady, unreadable, and untouchable. For manipulators, that's terrifying because their entire game depends on control, and you can't control a man who refuses to be moved. By 30 and 40, the Sigma male isn't cynical, he's clear-eyed. He doesn't assume everyone's out to use him, but he's no longer surprised when they try. That balance, cautious but unbothered, makes him the worst possible target. He has seen enough to be immune. And in a world where manipulation is the default currency, immunity is the ultimate weapon. Number 9, his discipline is sharper than his desire. By his 30s and 40s, the Sigma male's discipline has become sharper than his desire. In his younger years, like most men, he may have been pulled by impulses, chasing quick thrills, attention, validation, or pleasure just because it was available. Desire used to steer him, and sometimes it dragged him into mistakes, distractions, or unnecessary battles. But with time, he's seen the cost of every impulse acted on blindly. He knows now that the price of uncontrolled desire is wasted time, drained energy, and doors that never open because he was too busy chasing temporary highs. That's why discipline takes over. By his prime years, he doesn't just resist his impulses, he uses them. He knows desire is fuel, but discipline is the steering wheel. Without control, desire burns out fast, like a fire with no boundaries. With discipline, it becomes a weapon, directed, sustained, unstoppable. Where other men are still at the mercy of cravings, the Sigma has learned how to starve his weaknesses and feed only what serves his long game. This shift makes him terrifyingly effective. A man who chases pleasure is predictable. He can be manipulated with flattery, baited with temptation, or derailed with distractions. But a man who is governed by discipline is unreadable. He doesn't fold at the sight of temptation, doesn't compromise his focus, and doesn't waste energy on meaningless pursuits. His ability to say no gives more power to every yes he chooses. And the irony is that his life often ends up richer because of this restraint. While others scatter their efforts across dozens of distractions, he channels his time, energy, and resources into fewer, sharper pursuits. That focus compounds. It makes him masterful in areas where most men remain average. It makes his presence steady where others flicker. It makes his progress inevitable, even if slow, because discipline keeps him moving long after desire fades. By 30 and 40, he understands that anyone can want. Few can control that wanting, and fewer still can turn that control into lasting power. For the Sigma male, that's exactly what discipline becomes. Not a cage for his desires, but a forge where they are refined into something unstoppable. Number 10, he operates outside expiry dates. Most men see life like a ticking clock. They think their prime is a window that opens in their 20s and slams shut by their mid-30s. That belief drives them into a panic, rushing to settle, rushing to succeed, rushing to cling to whatever scraps of youth and validation they can still grab. But a Sigma male doesn't live by that clock. He operates outside expiry dates. Where others treat their prime as a brief countdown, he treats it as a plateau. His power isn't a short burst, it's a steady state that he can hold and refine. This mindset alone sets him apart, because he isn't racing against imagined deadlines, he moves with calm precision while others stumble in desperation. The average man at 35 feels like he's running out of time, chasing promotions, forcing relationships, trying to prove he's still relevant. The Sigma male at 35 or 40 is steady. He knows he's not in decline, he's in control. And that control radiates differently. It makes him unhurried, unshaken, almost unnervingly calm compared to the frantic energy of men who think they're aging out. What most people don't realize is that panic exposes weakness. You can see it in the man who overcompensates, in the one who brags too loudly, or in the one who clings too tightly to fading looks or status. Desperation is loud, but calm is louder. And by refusing to measure himself against society's timelines, the Sigma male eliminates desperation completely. His stability, his plateau, becomes its own form of intimidation. This doesn't mean he stops growing, it means he grows differently. Instead of burning out, he compounds. He doesn't measure himself by speed anymore, but by depth. He adds layers of skill, layers of resilience, layers of wisdom. Each year strengthens his foundation instead of eroding it. His prime isn't a fleeting season, it's a state of being he can extend for decades. And this is what unnerves others most. He doesn't fear running out of time because time is no longer his enemy. Men who operate with expiry dates radiate anxiety. The Sigma male radiates permanence. And permanence is far more powerful than a temporary peak. By 30 and 40, he isn't just in his prime, he's settled into a prime that doesn't expire. Number 11, he's seen the endgame of society's script. By the time a Sigma male reaches his 30s and 40s, he has seen the full endgame of society's script play out in front of him. He's watched men follow it step by step, marry young, lock themselves into mortgages, grind endlessly at jobs they hate, sacrifice their freedom for the illusion of stability, and then wake up one day full of regret. On paper, they did everything right, but in reality they look drained, resentful, and stuck. That image burns itself into the Sigma's mind. not as a warning whispered in theory, but as a living reality he's witnessed up close. This is where his independence becomes unshakable. He's not just rejecting society's path out of rebellion or ego. He's rejecting it because he's seen its end result, and he refuses to walk into the same trap. He knows the difference between a life that looks successful and a life that feels alive. And he would rather disappoint tradition, family expectations, or social norms than disappoint himself. What makes him dangerous is that he plays his own script with zero guilt. While most men his age are bound by obligations they can't escape, the Sigma male has kept his commitments lean and his freedom intact. He may not tick society's boxes at the expected time, but that's exactly why he doesn't collapse under the weight of regret later. His script doesn't demand validation, it delivers satisfaction on his terms. The contrast is sharp. The men around him radiate the anxiety of missed dreams and trapped routines. They scroll back through their memories, wondering what would have happened if they had chosen differently. Meanwhile, the Sigma is still writing new chapters. He's not locked into the past. He's free to keep evolving. And that freedom makes him stand out like a man who broke out of a cage most people didn't even realize they were sitting in. By 30 and 40, he understands what few men ever admit. Following the herd doesn't guarantee happiness, only conformity. He's seen the truth that many deny until it's too late, that society's script is mass-produced regret. And because he knows that, he lives by his own script, one that cannot be dictated, predicted, or caged. Number 12. He moves like a ghost with impact. By the time a Sigma male reaches his 30s and 40s, his movements take on a paradoxical quality. He's invisible when he wants to be, unforgettable when he chooses to step in. This is a level of mastery younger men can't touch, because they still rely on being loud, noticeable, and constantly active to feel relevant. The Sigma doesn't need any of that. He knows presence is more powerful when it's rare and influence is sharper when it's selective. When he wants to disappear, he can blend into the background effortlessly. He's not the man drawing attention with forced charisma or desperate energy. Invisibility is his choice, and that makes it powerful. He observes quietly, collects information, and absorbs details while others are too busy trying to be noticed. This ghost-like ability makes him unpredictable. You never know when he's watching or what he's storing away for later. That silence is unnerving because people can't manipulate what they can't read. But when he decides to make his presence felt, it's unforgettable. He doesn't flood the room with noise. He strikes with precision. One action, one comment, one decision lands with the weight of 100. Because he doesn't speak to fill silence, his words carry gravity. Because he doesn't insert himself into every situation, his involvement signals importance. When he steps in, people remember it long after he's gone. That balance between being unseen and unforgettable gives him a kind of control most men never master. Younger men often confuse visibility with power, but visibility without impact is just noise. The Sigma male in his prime understands that being everywhere dilutes you. He'd rather be nowhere until the exact moment it matters, then hit with such force that people can't shake the memory. His presence is like a shadow, ignored when overlooked, haunting when recalled. This ghost-like movement isn't about mystery for mystery's sake, it's about control. He decides when to vanish, and he decides when to leave a mark. And the mark he leaves isn't surface-level charm, it's deep, lasting impact. By 30 and 40, he doesn't just move through spaces, he shapes them. Even in absence, his presence lingers. That's why his prime years make him less like a man in a crowd and more like a force behind the curtain. By the time a Sigma male reaches his 30s and 40s, he isn't just stepping into another stage of life. He's stepping into the life that was built for him all along. These are not the years of decline, as society often whispers, but the years of sharpening, of crystallization, of unapologetic mastery. Every scar has become a tool, every silence has become a weapon, every rejection of society's script has freed him to live on his own terms. While others panic about lost youth, he radiates a calm power that can't be faked. While men around him scramble for titles, validation, and legacy, he's already embodying all three without asking for permission. He moves like a ghost, strikes like a force, and carries himself with the weight of a man who has nothing left to prove, yet everything still left to create. His prime isn't measured by the world's timeline, but by his own internal clock. He doesn't burn out because he never spent his fire recklessly. He doesn't wither in solitude because he turned it into a forge. And he doesn't chase after legacy because he understands. He already is one. This is why the Sigma male truly shines at 30 and 40. Not because the world finally notices him, but because he finally stops caring if it does. That indifference, paired with discipline, wisdom, and lived experience, transforms him from an outsider into a quiet, undeniable force. And for those watching him, whether with admiration, envy, or fear, one truth becomes impossible to ignore. His prime years are not borrowed time. They are his time, and he intends to use them without hesitation. If this breakdown of the Sigma male's prime years hit you the way it was meant to, then don't just walk away quietly. Hit that subscribe button and lock in with us, because we're only getting deeper into truths most people can't handle. Smash the like if you felt the weight of this message, drop a comment with your own perspective, and share this with someone who needs to hear why 30 and 40 aren't endings, they're awakenings. Stay sharp, stay different, and I'll see you in the next one.